Hi, everybody. Welcome to another episode of Behind the Curtain. This is Greg Heilman with Sound on Stage. Today, I am joined with Jack Conley. Jack and his partner Koda, Saunders, are producing an independent version of Martin McDonagh's 2003 play The Pillowman at Theater Puget Sounds Theater 4, opening this Friday, February 21st, and running through March 2nd. The Pillowman is an interesting play, and I can't wait to talk to Jack about the production of this. It deals with some pretty heavy topics and child abduction and things like that. But it runs at the theater for that intimate space. It's kind of a few floors up from the Center Theater and the Seattle Armory, as I said, opening this weekend. So, Jack, welcome to the show. I appreciate you taking the time to talk with me today.
Of course, thanks so much for having me on. I'm looking forward to talking about this show.
Okay, so tell me about this first of all. I was reading a little bit about the Pillowman because I mean, just the name of it itself, because I wasn't really familiar with it before. Just I hear the Pillowman and I think it's some sort of horror kind of film, and yeah, I mean, it's a dark, dark subject about a man who writes stories about the child abduction and things like that, and then I think he gets arrested for these crimes, but wants to save his stories, something like that. So explain to me what enticed you about the story enough that you want to put it on stage.
It's an excellent question. You're totally right that on the surface, The Pale Man looks like it would be a horror movie, and there's definitely some horror element to it, some gruesome things, some horror movie type things that are discussed in the show. But that's not the element that drew me to it. It's a show that I've been aware of for some time now. I first read it when I was in college, completing my BA, and one of my majors was theater. We read the show for class. Actually, I think I read it for two different classes. And it just stuck with me for a number of years after that and still today. What drew me to wanting to produce it is that it is a show that, on the surface, yes, is very gruesome. It's also very darkly funny. Martin McDonagh is sort of at the forefront of the black comedy theater genre, very respected in that genre, and I think this is a textbook example of what that can be. There's some very, very funny moments in it, and I really am drawn to the balance of the humor and the darkness, finding light in even the darkest, most horrible things while not pulling punches or shying away from the fact that the stuff that is discussed that happens in the show is, yes, horrible. Um, and a lot of the characters in the show aren't very nice people. My cast would tell you the same. Um, but I think ultimately what's at the core of what draws me to the show is it's about a lot of things, but it's about censorship and totalitarianism and what it means to have your voice heard and to protect your voice and protect your words, even in the face of terrible things. The central character, Katurian, he, above all else, throughout the play, wants to protect his stories, wants to protect the things he's written, wants to make sure that even after he's gone, the things that he's written remain. There's a line in the play where he says about his stories, it's something like it's not about life or death, but the exact quote, which we actually also put on our poster, is "It's about what you leave behind."
Mhm.
To me, that's at the core of it. That's at the core of what the show is about. That, and I admittedly think that the themes of police brutality and totalitarianism are a little bit too painfully relevant today. It's definitely something we
Yeah,
talked a lot about in our rehearsal process and our text discussions as well. What the
yeah.
characters of the police represent.
It's I in one of my latest reviews, I wrote that, and I found that in a lot of my recent reviews, I'm writing the same thing, that this play is unfortunately timely, and these are plays that have been written. I mean, this one's been written 20 years ago. Plays that have been written 50, 100 years ago are unfortunately timely in that they're things that you think we'd have gotten through as a species, but we just haven't.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, and you were going through kind of those themes of the story, and I was thinking, yeah, I mean, this is something that, in the context of the story, um, obviously fits with the story, but it's something that, on a broader scale, fits with what we're seeing socially now. And so,
Uh,
yeah, we're definitely relevant. So production wise, so how long have you had the been working on the in the production side of this piece to put it together? How long have you been in the space, or did you start putting it together somewhere else, rehearsal off site, and then get into the theater four space at TPS? There, how did the whole process uh, work for you?
the process started last year um, when Koda and I realized that we both had a keen interest in producing this show and both agreed that we wanted to produce it together. We started the process by organizing what I've been calling an experimental reading, where we got some theater friends together over Zoom, us, and then 5 people who were reading the script with us. Um, one of whom, funnily enough, actually ended up getting cast in the full production.
Mhm.
But we wanted to sit down, and part of the purpose of that reading was to decide whether we wanted to pitch it to our company that we were both on the board of, or if we wanted to go it solo. Obviously, the decision was to go solo, which is something that has been really challenging and rewarding. Um, but after that reading, when we decided we wanted to do it, the next step was picking a venue. Now, I have worked in theater for several times throughout the years, both as a theater student growing up in Seattle and going to high school at the Seattle Center School, who uses those spaces. I did youth theater for a good few years with Seattle Shakespeare Company's camps, and they use that space. So that space has always felt like home to me. Also, last year, I directed a production in that very same theater for Through Rainy Day of the Triangle Factory Fire Project. So I had worked with it recently and knew it would be a good fit for my vision of the show. So we knew we wanted to do it around this time of year, around February, early March, just because of our other commitments to other productions that we've done or are doing, projects with Rainy Day, wanting to make sure we were able to balance our schedules properly so we could give equal attention to everything we were working on. And most of our projects, we're both working on them together because we're kind of I'm the artistic director and Koda's technical manager, does all of our like high level tech stuff. So we're both involved in all the projects we do. So part of it was a timeline thing. We got with the wonderful people at Theater 4 at Theater Puget Sound, who I can't say enough positive things about. They're a delight to work with and an organization I'm happy to support and rent from again and again. We booked our space, got everything ready, held auditions, and we've been to kind of answer the second part of your question, where we've been doing it. We had our auditions in December, knowing that we wanted to get them done before the holidays, and had our table read before the holidays, and then started rehearsals in January. We have been rehearsing in Theater Puget Sound's rehearsal spaces, their rehearsal studios on that same floor of the building. We're currently in the middle of Tech Week. We didn't move into Theater 4 until this Sunday, and we've been doing our Tech Week in there. Luckily enough for us, because we were able to use the Theater 4 spaces, there's a rehearsal studio on the same hall that is about the same width and dimensions as
Mm.
the theater. So that's been really fortunate and lucky for us that we didn't have to adjust too much to the space when we moved in. And something that's really been valuable about being able to rehearse in the same, building and floor, even for not rehearsing
Yeah.
in performance space.
Must be a lot easier than rehearsing in a black box space and then having to work, go into a space with a big proscenium and an auditorium or something like that. I can imagine. When you say because you're self producing this, I imagine funding and all of that stuff that you had to take that on yourselves as part of that. That had to be part of the challenging piece of this, I imagine.
Yes, yeah, funding was a challenging piece. That was another thing that I knew would have to be a consideration and was a consideration when we were preparing to produce. I had to sit down and be like, okay, we don't have a grant or a company that we're starting with this. This is a self-funded production, and I had to sit down and be like, okay, do we have the funds? What does the budget need to be? How can we, make a good show and still offer our actors at least a modest stipend, because we didn't want them to walk away with nothing, and rent the space and do all the things we need to do. Where can we keep the costs low while still creating the show we want to create? And I'm lucky enough to have a little bit of a background in things like business and accounting. I work in a clinic and administration. I have a master's in healthcare administration, so I was able to put some of those skills. I do all the budgeting for Rainy Day too. So I just popped it together. It's like, okay, this can work, and it has worked. People have been, very generous as well, allowing us to borrow some things and giving us discounts on things that we did not ask for. So I really want to shout out Seattle Gilbert Sullivan Society and a masquerade costume in Redmond have both been extremely generous to us, and extremely supportive of the production, as well as just the artists that we've been working with have stepped up to support the production in major ways that we never would have thought to ask them to do. It's really been a collaborative labor of love among the cast, the crew, our wonderful stage manager. Everybody's kind of all hands on deck, and it's really been a beautiful process. It's one of the most collaborative shows I've worked on. Everybody really feels like a team to me.
Great. How big's your cast?
We have 8 in the
Okay.
cast. 4 actors who are playing what I've been calling the named characters: the writer, the brother, and the 2 police, and an ensemble of 4 who are playing the other roles that are mentioned in the cast, as well as so there are a number of stories of the writers that are told and or summarized in the play, that you hear text from it, or you hear this is what happens. And those wonderful ensemble have been employed to visually see those stories and bring them to life. So,
wow. Okay.
with one exception, I won't spoil every story in the Pillowman that you hear. You also see it play out in some way on stage. We have 4 very physically skilled actors who are able to use those skills to bring that to life for us. And they've been a delight to work with. And it was it's been a really fun addition to the scenes in terms of visual appeal. But I like to think it also packs a little bit of a different emotional punch.
Great. And obviously it sounds like, with the content of the story, and it sounds like the action itself in the story maybe keep the young kids away from it.
Yeah, not a play I'd recommend. Bring in the kids too. On our sites and posters, we've recommended 13 plus at least for this one. It's got a lot of, and on our ticketing page as well, we try and be pretty thorough about some content warnings you might expect. But it's one where we recommend that you don't go in completely blind. At least know kind of the basic content, what you're in for. Even if you read up on it a little bit, there could still be some surprises.
Yep. Okay, well, the links for your page and where to get tickets, I'll put in the show notes here, and it opens this Friday, runs through March 2nd, I think. But I do want to talk about, you mentioned Rainy Day a few times in our conversation. I believe that's Rainy Day Artists Collective?
Rainy Day Artistic Collective, yeah.
Artistic Collective.
A little bit of a mouthful.
Yeah, and that's the group that Koda and you are also members, and you mentioned artistic director, and she's the technical director of some.
Yeah. We floated a few titles around.
Okay.
Essentially, honestly, I mostly just call them. It's not the official title, but I mostly just call them our tech wizard. To kind of explain that further, Rainy Day Artistic Collective is a group that was founded in 2020 and really started doing stuff in 2021. First, it just was a group of folks who got together over Zoom to do monthly readings of scripts, just privately for us.
It's sort of a COVID thing?
Huh?
Was it sort of a COVID thing, a way to get together while everything was shut down?
Yeah, it served as that for probably its first 6 months to a year of existence. And then in early 2021, we decided, hey, why don't we try to do a one act festival virtually? That could be an interesting challenge. And so we did. And it was a really positive experience. And so we're like, hey, let's do another one. So we did. Then we decided, why don't we do a full length play? So we did. And we just kept going. We've now done, I want to say, 6 or 7 fully produced, like full length virtual plays. Things like Hamlet and Cyrano de Bergerac, Midsummer Night's Dream, a couple of original works. Our next one, which we're still, working out the final details of, will be The Importance of Being Earnest. We try to do about 2 of those a year.
Okay.
And we have, costumes, a lot of technical stuff. And Koda does a lot of the design and a lot of the execution for our live streaming, as well as does some directing and writing and acting, wears a lot of hats. It started working with us, I want to say in like late 2020, sometime in 2022, maybe
Okay.
2021. It's been a while. The years blur together. We
Yeah.
also do some in-person stuff here in Seattle. Koda, as I think they mentioned to you, is located in Los Angeles. So I kind of
Right.
have the in-person arm. At the moment, we do one in-person, like traditional in-person full-length play a year. This will be our 3rd year doing that. And this summer, our production is 12th Night. We've also done an original play called Dorothy Alice Wendy Mary Groan, and last year we did the Triangle Factory Fire Project. Our mission is, our mission statement is make the theater you wish to see. We consider ourselves an experimental group. We do a lot of different virtual theater, full-length one-act festivals, flash festivals. We've done some monologue nights, showcases. We are trying to kind of be at the forefront of, hey, this virtual theater thing popped up during the pandemic, and a lot of people, understandably, are kind of using it as a stopgap until theaters opened again. But we found that there was something really beautiful and unique in it, both in that, and we almost always do our stuff fully live. We don't pre-record our work unless we absolutely have to, but we try to avoid it. So we're still delivering live theater over a live streaming method, and we see the artistic value in it as its own art form. And we also, one of the reasons we've continued to hang on with it is it connects people to theater who might not otherwise be able to go out and see a play. They can watch Shakespeare or an original new one act or listen to monologues from their own home. We've had a lot of people in audiences or that we've worked with as actors or writers who told us that it connected them back to theater in a way that they wouldn't have otherwise been able to do. And that's been really beautiful to hear. And we've also loved the opportunity to connect to artists around the country and also around the world. We've worked with artists in Canada, Mexico, New Zealand, Australia, the UK, maybe even some other places I'm forgetting, every time zone in the US, including Hawaii. And Koda and I met through this as well. And it's just been a really beautiful collaboration. And I've seen some really deep, important friendships, including some of my own made that way. Being able to connect with artists in a new way and really deeply collaborate has been just a thrilling experience. And so we intend to go on with this virtual theater thing as long as we can, even while we're continuing to produce more stuff in person in Seattle as well.
Yeah, I applaud you for that because I remember during COVID, I used to think, well, what from COVID, out of all this technology and things that we've built to get us through, is going to survive and going to carry on, and I thought more people would be doing virtual theater, and they're not. People are doing rehearsals, so they'll start their first rehearsals and read throughs and things like that over Zoom, but I'm not seeing a lot of virtual theater other than you're the first person I've talked to who's mentioned that they regularly do virtual theater because to me, it not only makes the theater accessible to other people that are distributed. So I want to see a particular a family member in a play, but I live in Florida or whatever. But it's also people that can't commit to going somewhere to a theater for a significant amount of time, but they can for a few hours, to do it virtually. So I applaud you for that because I thought more people would be doing that, and there's definitely, I think, a need for it.
Yeah, I thank you. I also see the need and also admit I was surprised to see there aren't very many people doing it anymore. I know of a couple of other groups that do it, mostly as readings. Um, I don't know. There may be one. There very, very well may be one I don't recognize. And there are groups that I learned a lot of what I know from about it that unfortunately no longer exist. But I don't see a lot of groups anymore that do it in a way where they treat it as a full process, full production, which for me is a lot of where that camaraderie and togetherness of creating the theater comes from. Although I do love seeing the virtual readings that pop up as well and hope to attend more of them in the future.
Yeah, I mean, any unique way of doing theater, any way to get theater out there to people is, I mean, it's good. I mean, I'm not going to argue against any of it. So, Jack, well, thank you for taking the time. I appreciate it. I'm going to put a link for the Rainy Day uh, Artistic Collective out in the notes as well. But your play with Koda opens. This is the Pillowman, Martin McDonough's 2003 play. The Pillowman opens the Theater Puget Sounds Theater for this Friday, February 21st, and runs through March 2nd. And is it Friday, Saturday, Sunday? Each week, and then a 7:30, and then a matinee on Sunday. I'm trying to remember the schedule.
It's Friday, Saturday, 7 o'clock, Sunday, 2 o'clock.
Okay, perfect. And I'll put the link in the show notes where folks can get tickets. I think it's going to be a unique show, and I think people will enjoy it. Obviously, for a particular age range of people. So, once again, Jack, thanks for taking the time. I really appreciate the conversation. And I wish you all the best of luck with this particular play and with Rainy Day as well in the future. We'll keep up to date with what you guys are doing with that.
Thank you so much. It's been a pleasure to talk to you today.
All right, thanks. For all you watching out there, Greg Hein with the Sound on Stage. You've been watching Behind the Curtain. Until next time, I will see you at the stage door.